For the past year, we've had our new CEO. We put him in office right after the last annual meeting, Anthony Mallott. The board selected Anthony partially because of his education. He's a Stanford graduate, and for his number of years of experience with not only Sealaska, but also with Bank of America for about 10 years before that. And also because we really wanted to have a CEO that lived and raised his family in Juneau, and that he's among you. And I know that all of you shareholders from here in Juneau, you see Anthony on a regular basis, and it's good to have our CEO here at home. Anthony?
Gunak Chish, thank you all for being here. I'd like to quickly introduce myself. I didn't get the opportunity to do that earlier. Gunak Yuchat Duasak, Chak Nachat Sati, Tagwedi Ayachat, Koshkakwan Yeti Ayachat, Gunana Koyakan Athabaskan Dashkan Ayachat, Up Dachanuku Tekwedi, Yakan Chuya Kaushli Tsaki Hit Dach Ayachat. Keek Kwan Ayachat, Yaktat Kwan Ayachat. I'm Eagle Killer Whale, Tsagwedi. My father, Byron Mallott, is from Yakutat, Alaska. I was raised there. I grew up commercial fishing there. My mother is from Rampart on the Yukon River. My uncle Clarence Jackson adopted her into the Tsagwedi. My brothers and I were so proud to call Clarence uncle. The material that we have provided you today, I hope the material that you have, the presentation I'm going to walk you through, really help you give a sense of how serious the board and management are taking the need to redirect Sealaska and get us on the path to profitability. We've used so much visual of Nora and the young boy on the cover of our annual report, on the piece of collateral you have in front of you, on the poster that we've provided you. And I want to make sure I describe what that means to me. It can mean different things. It doesn't have to mean exactly this, but I also want to describe what we mean by on the path. Most of you may be asking, what path? When I look at Nora's eyes, I see the wisdom of our ancestors, the wisdom that they utilized to survive in our land for over 10,000 years. And more importantly, for this point in time, I see expectation that we carry forward that wisdom, that we follow the path that they set for us. And I feel the eyes of Clarence. I feel the eyes of Judson Brown. I feel the eyes of so many others who are no longer with us that I was lucky enough to know as a young boy. And that expectation is real. We just celebrated. And I look at this because to me, it represented the lands bill. And the celebration itself, we say dancing on our land. We celebrated that. And some of the individuals that were up on stage said, and it was a perfect exclamation point to a fantastic process. But for us that were still in the company, and for the interns, for the young dancers, we said, it's just the beginning. It's just the beginning of making sure that we keep the promises and fulfill the expectations that everybody talked about. Senator Murkowski said it perfectly. This is for the region. This is for forever. That's a lot of pressure. We feel it. We take it very seriously at Sealaska because we know that expectation is there. What makes it fun is because We want this young boy to continue to see that vision. We want this young boy on the cover, and I see him looking out into the future. It represents so many of the young people you saw on stage, the young dancers. It represents them seeing that a current generation and the wisdom of their ancestors are creating a future that they can be proud of. And that's what makes the pressure and the expectations motivating for us, that combination. I wanted to, when I was going to introduce the employees, when I did introduce the employees earlier, I wanted to give a little explanation on why we had 2 children's dance groups. It seems fairly obvious when we're continually talking about wanting the children to grow up knowing their native cultures. But to me, having the children's groups dance with us today allows us to celebrate the people that are dedicated to working with the young children. Hans Chester, Jessica Chester, Michelle Martin, Ishmael Hope, Mary Folletti, Duck Ginny, Lance Twitchell. There's so many. The language instructors, Lyle James, Colleen James, the elders who continue to work with our children, David Katzik, Paul Marks. We heard how dedicated Selena is. Our artists, Doug Chilton. The creation of the One Canoe Society was something I wanted to see for so long, and he's dedicated time and effort to make that happen. All of those individuals feel this. They have been passed on wisdom. They have been passed on the expectation to take that wisdom and carry it forward to our future generations. And when we create our strategic plan, that's how it's structured. And I'll go ahead and move in to the presentation. If we can get that up. And I didn't want to use kind of the same beginning I used last year. Last year, this is my 1-year anniversary as president and CEO. Thank you, Vinicius. In Seattle was the first annual meeting that I got to go through as CEO. And I started because it was inspiring to hear the independent candidates. It was inspiring to hear all the shareholder input that we heard from our community meetings, not only last year, but this year. And we want to let you know we listen. We listen to your input. We also want to know that, there's a lot of myths and misperceptions about Sealaska. And we'll cover some of these. An independent candidate today said, why do you want to make an investment when the history of your investments don't have the greatest track record? We take that very serious. And I'm talking about one of the main initiatives we have moving into 2015 and 16 when I get to introducing our new strategic update. But there are some misperceptions about the past performance. It's been highlighted that $220 million in losses over the last decade. I think it's disingenuous to take out the investment earnings over that time period, to not count the fact that when we give $1.5 million annually or more to Sealaska Heritage, it shows up as a loss, as an expense. That's an expense we're not going to cut. We've told the shareholders that. When it's said that we've only raised shareholder equity by 2%, it doesn't count the dividends, the scholarships, the donations to Sealaska Heritage that we make, again, continually year after year, because we know it's the right investment in our culture. And we talked about the beginning of our annual report. It is not fluff to us. It is not meant to hide anything. Barbara Cadiente Nelson, Director Nelson, mentioned we have a triple bottom line that cannot be shown in GAAP financials. We follow GAAP financials. That's what you see in our financials. That's what you see in the footnotes. It shows our donation to Sealaska Heritage as an expense. So we have to show that it is not an expense, it's an investment. It's an investment in our young people to learn their language, to spread our art. It's an investment to see celebration. And our way of showing that these expenses on the financial statement are actual investments and meaningful is in the beginning pages of our book. We highlight Sealaska Heritage. We highlight the scholarships we provide. And we also highlight our businesses and the investment assets we have. I needed to answer some of that because when we say we're on the path, it doesn't indicate that we've hit our goals at that point. It indicates that we strongly believe that the strategic plan we have will lead us to the goals that we've heard, that we have for ourselves, and that our shareholders have. And it's the same goals and expectations that we feel from our elders. On the path indicates that we are following our traditional Native values, and we have a strategic plan that we told you in 6 points last year that are going to lead us to the financial results that you all deserve. 2014 by itself was a great step forward. You know, we talked about 2013 last year. We had a $35 million loss. This year we had a $15 million gain. That's a $50 million turnaround. And we wanted to highlight that because we told you, the shareholders, that the loss in 2013 was a one-time event, that Sealaska was stable, that Sealaska had the investment funds to recover from this and get back on the path to profitability. And 2014 indicates that. When one of the most important items that we worked on, and I'll start walking down the 6 items that we shared with you last year, was integrating, streamlining, improving our Sealaska Government Services operations. The importance was because the majority of the losses we saw in 2013 came from that entity. Sealaska Government Services had over $30 million in losses in 2013. We put significant amounts of work from many managers in Sealaska to make sure that those losses stopped. And in 2014, Sealaska Government Services made a $3.4 million profit for Sealaska. That's a great turnaround, but it's just the start. The 6 items are meant to start a process that builds trust with the shareholders. We've dedicated ourselves to tell the shareholders what we're working on and then come back to them and tell them the progress that we've made on those strategic items that we told you we were going to accomplish, and we'll highlight what it means to Sealaska. And last year, this was perfect. We told you that we were going to get the Sealaska land entitlement. And we just witnessed a great celebration of that accomplishment. Moving forward, that falls off the 6 strategic initiatives, but there's new ones that get added. We already heard our dedication to helping the landless and the Native veterans get their allotments. This is how the new Sealaska will work, putting initiatives forward, making progress towards them, accomplishing them, and then just moving on to the next one. Last year, we had an initiative, narrow our operations, on the sheet that we shared with you. We're already seeing the benefit of that. Chair Nelson mentioned the fact that we got out of our plastic injection molding facilities. We've narrowed our operations to business units that are headquartered in Alaska and the Pacific Northwest, and we can already see that it's giving us more focus, more time and attention on the operations that we want to make long-term investments into, and it's making a difference for us. So that's fallen off because now we believe we're at a point that the hard work we put into 2014 are going to start showing the growth that we've promised. You have in your package the new 6 points for 2015. It's called a strategic plan update. It's right next to the Sealaska Heritage page. Some people might ask, in the 6 initiatives, you don't have Sealaska Heritage in this. That's, to us, is such a given that it's expected to be on that list year after year. We do have information on our dedication to Sealaska Heritage, but right next to it is our strategic plan update. I wanted to point out one thing, just because it's caused some question. It mentions that the ultimate goal of the plan is for Sealaska to be self-sustaining with income from our subsidiaries. That's the ultimate goal of this 5-year plan. A 5-year period, the board and management believe, is a short-term period in the lifespan of Sealaska. This is just the short-term goal. It's not the ultimate goal of Sealaska 100 years from now. But it is important because we've heard from the shareholders, you need to be profitable before 7i in investment income. And we've dedicated resources and our strategic planning efforts to hit that point. And as I walk through this, it's one thing to hear it verbally. We've added a chart that I'll present to you that adds a little visual component to walking through the new strategic plan initiatives and how they fit into getting us to our goals. We heard the investment process. We've had struggles with our investment process in the past. We know that we have significant assets to make investments that will make a meaningful difference for the profit and income of Sealaska. But we know also that the process to get there needs to be right. It needs to fit our values. It needs to be very aware of the risk of making investments. The process has to understand what mistakes we've made in the past. And it also has to understand what strengths we've learned and have from our past investments. And this takes time. We also want to find value. We want to find value in the company, and we want to find a good cultural fit. And you can't find a good cultural fit without spending a lot of time with the businesses that you may want to invest in. And we're doing that right now. We've visited close to 500 companies. We've had 18-month relationships with companies that we're still pursuing. And that whole time period is to prove the cultural fit, to prove that we understand the businesses we're going to invest in, and that we don't make the mistakes of the past. Through this, and why it's number one on this plan update, it's not just to make the first investment either. We want to create a process that we can repeat, because as Sealaska grows, it builds additional investment capital. We can continue to make investments that only add to our long-term ability to grow our financial performance, to grow our cash flow on a consistent annual basis. I mentioned sustainable land. I mentioned the fact that the lands bill was on this list last year, and the accomplishment of it has just led us into the next stage. Sustainable land management. We heard it stated so much more eloquently by our previous speakers. There's an expectation that we, even though we own less than 2% of the Tongass, that we protect it all, that we care for it all, and we be a good steward of the lands we own and help other landowners in Southeast Alaska be good stewards of their lands. Jaylene went from working the majority of her time on the lands bill to a little tiny window of celebration when it passed, and then straight into planning for the future of our new lands. And that included sitting on the Tongass Advisory Committee 3 full days a month, every month from January through May, dedicated with our natural resource staff to making sure Sealaska's voice is at the table when there's any planning for the long-term use of the Tongass. And that's what we mean by sustainable land management. The expectation that there will be jobs and benefits that show from our land not only 100 years from now, but forever. Improved and efficient operating culture. This is, I get even stuck in it. It gets pointed out, you're using corporate speak. That's fine. I get the opportunity to talk with you about what that means. That means we are going to value our employees, and we're going to expect value from our employees. They're going to work in what we categorize as wuchiyach, wuch'in. They're going to work together. You saw the power of teams. We just stood up close to 20 plus people, and it was mentioned that they worked as a team to get one of the heaviest lifts of legislation passed. That's how we expect our employees to work into the future. And last year, this particular item was cost reductions, because we've heard that from the shareholders, and we took that seriously. There were significant cost reductions from 2012 through 2014, and we continue to carry those cost reductions forward. But we really do believe that we're at a point, we're seeing the opportunities for growth, that now we have to invest in our employee base, and we have to build the culture that will help us achieve the goals we've set for ourselves. Support economic development in Southeast. Again, this may be a given. Ha'ani and our want to support our rural communities may become a given just as such as Sealaska heritage and our investments in culture is. But we need to get this one right. Sealaska could put every last dollar into economic development in Southeast Alaska, and it may not make all the difference we need. There are so many barriers and tough issues with economic development in our rural communities. We believe that with a team dedicated to finding partners and finding solutions to the problems we see in our rural communities, we can continue to incrementally make a difference in those communities. We're not going to change it all at once. We're going to make incremental improvement, and we're going to find partners that help us and care about our communities just as much as us, and we're going to pool our resources with those partners. And we've already found some that are very beneficial. The Nature Conservancy, a great partner for Ha'ani. They care about the rural areas in Southeast Alaska, and we share management, we share resources, and we share goals for making a difference in Southeast Alaska. And one of the areas that kind of goes together with the employee initiative and the investment initiative is create growth-oriented operating entities. Sealaska Government Services is absolutely one of those platforms. We've spent a lot of effort, and we're going to have some additional conversation about Sealaska Government Services, so I won't jump into that too much. And we're also going to have some additional conversations with a panel discussion that's following this about our acquisition process that will be key to creating the second platform we believe we can create long-term growth from, which is the natural foods and seafood sector. And then lastly, something that we're always going to work on, because it's important to share our vision with the shareholders. The last 12 months, management has I've called it the keep your head down and work time period. There was so much change and fixing that we had to do over the last 12 months. We come out of that period heads up. Management does first. And we look back and we look forward. We're building the vision. We see the progress that we've created in that 12-month period. We need to make sure the employees start seeing that vision, the board sees that vision, and the shareholders see that vision. And right now, it's fairly simple. We want to invest in businesses that can show continual growth for our shareholders. It sounds simple, needs a lot more effort. We start adding to that vision. We want those business operations, but we want them also to fit our core native values. That's a piece of the vision. And as we add to that vision, we're going to continually share that with you, the shareholders, to give you the sense that we are making progress. And as we do, one of the things that will prove the vision is working is that you'll see increased benefits, whether it's increased dividends, whether it's our ability to invest more in cultural programs. You'll see that difference. And that's when we'll know the vision's working, is when we're able to provide increased benefits to you, the shareholders. And that's what we're working on a daily basis. We're putting our heads down, we're working hard, and we want to make sure that we provide as much information to you as possible about that process, which is why we're trying something new. I mentioned the fact that our employees are going to make this happen. We have a panel coming up that Director Reinhardt's going to lead that allows you to get more of a sense from a broader set of management, from the broader team, about how we are going to make the progress that we need for Sealaska. Gunak Cheese, thank you very much.
Good, I didn't have to tell you guys, grab your own chair. So we're going to try something a little different, and it is to have this, this panel. Sealaska is as Anthony was talking about, it has a team-based approach. And this is a pretty good cross-section. We don't have Doug Morris up here, but it's a pretty good cross-section of our management team. We have our CEO and our COO, a general manager from our government services, and our general counsel and corporate secretary. So during the month of May, while we were going around on community meetings, we heard a lot of questions and compiled some frequently asked questions and tried to pick the ones that we thought were asked often and people really seem to have an interest in. So I'm going to just real briefly introduce each of you, basically just give your name and title. Feel free to introduce yourself a little bit further. The first question is going to be for Terry Downs. He is our Chief Operating Officer. Terry, we heard from shareholders many questions about the acquisition process or investment process we're pursuing. We talk about it in that it's in the strategic plan. Can you give us an idea of how the investment process was constructed, how we narrowed our industry focus, and when you think we might see an investment occur?
Sure. Hello, everyone. Thank you, Richard. It's a pleasure to be here with you all. So this process really started 3 years ago when the board adopted a new strategic plan. The board had the vision to decide that they're going to build on Sealaska's uniqueness, build a company that was really a successful economic entity that was based on core native values, and took that core native wisdom and turned that into relevant, successful businesses that have a positive impact on Sealaska and its shareholders. That sounds like a relatively simple thing to say. I personally believe that's an incredibly powerful idea, because I believe that the wisdom that indigenous people have and have had for thousands of years has never been more relevant to Western civilization. And I think the challenges that Western civilization is facing right now, its ability to sustain and thrive, it needs to, I think, look back into the past and history of people, which is indigenous people, and learn from that and apply these learnings urgently, I think. The ability to take the wisdom from the past, to bring that to the present, combine it with all we know in technology, but always looking to the future and making sure that as we apply and try to thrive in the present, we don't do it at the expense of the future. That's something that's inherent in indigenous culture. I know that as a non-indigenous person. I think we all do at some level. And it's an idea that non-native people, I think, are beginning to understand. So if we can build an organization based on that concept, I think not only will it be successful economically, but I think it'll be a terrific example, to our region and to all the people that know about us and take an interest in us. So the first thing that we really did was we built on the values that the board agreed or thought represented, that future. And we looked at the businesses that we had, as Anthony touched on, and we decided a lot of them didn't fit. They didn't fit geographically. They were in Guadalajara or Florida, and places where we had very few shareholders. They didn't fit with respect to what they did. didn't feel like we were doing things that were, consistent with this idea of applying native values and wisdom. They were injection molding plastics or operating in Central America. And we also didn't feel like they were economically successful enough. They weren't providing jobs, they weren't providing profits to be able to give back to shareholders or do the other things we wanted to do. So we decided that we would sell them, we would clean up the company, and we would turn those businesses into cash that we could invest in things that did achieve those objectives. So these businesses, none of them, if you added them all together, all the businesses that we sold, they lost money. We were able to turn those businesses into over $20 million of cash because every business has a value to someone. Someone else that's already in that business, like in the case of injection molding. Someone who's bigger than us and looking to take those businesses out as competitors or integrate them, whatever it might be. So there's always someone out there that an asset is worth more to. So we did that, and as Anthony pointed out, we ended that process really last year. We have one remaining disposal to finalize, but we're 95% done with that process. The second thing we had to do was, in parallel with that idea of cleaning up investments, simplifying our operation, build an operating structure that could accept new investments. 90+% of acquisitions fail because they're not well integrated into the acquiring company. So a really important thing we had to do was to re-architect our corporation. So when we made investments, they could quickly, easily, and successfully be integrated to maximize their success. The third thing we do was give ourselves the freedom to realize we have a blank sheet of paper here. Just because we've been in a business in the past doesn't mean we have to be that in the future. And so we took that blank sheet of paper and we looked hard at a whole array of different industries. And we did this ourselves because we felt like, within our shareholder base and within our leadership and management team and board, we had the unique understanding together of what we were trying to do. And we just did a lot of legwork, as Anthony said. We've gone out and talked to hundreds of companies. It's been a very proactive process. We've gone out to listen and learn from ourselves, from each other, from our board, from our shareholders, from people that are active in the communities where our shareholders live. And learn and try and build a picture of, given who we are, given what's happening in the world, given what we're trying to achieve, what are some good investment choices? What industries have the economic wind at their back, if you like? Industries that are going to grow with or without us, that we can uniquely participate in and build success in. And so we took a combination of businesses we already had some knowledge of and businesses we felt like would be a terrific fit. And we built some filters based on those. The filter is around geography. I mean, you won't see us investing outside of the western half of the United States. We're focusing on Alaska, the Pacific Northwest, the places where we know and our shareholders and live. We're focusing on businesses that are going to be economically successful. We're focusing on a way to acquire those businesses at a reasonable cost. That's not an easy thing to do. And then we're focusing on buying into successful businesses with management or leadership or ownership that has a very close tie to who we are. Because we believe that's the number one reason why some of the things we did in the past didn't work. We weren't truly aligned. We weren't on the same page. We weren't working openly with those partners. We didn't necessarily really readily able to admit when a mistake was made. Those are things internally we've worked very hard on, both with the leadership and with our board, very openly, to have hard conversations, to put the truth on the table, and to act on that truth. It's an easy thing to say, but it has powerful consequences. And if we can consistently do that, we have a lot of wisdom in the room. If we can put all that wisdom together and distill it into making good decisions for the future of the company, I don't see how we can fail. And if we're willing to recognize and act on mistakes quickly, because we will make mistakes, and if we're willing to really be accountable and listen to all of you and take that feedback and learn from it and apply it, I don't see how we can't be successful. So that's been the approach that we've taken. We're focusing on several sectors, again, based on our research in areas where we have some success. They're very much, one is natural foods. We're interested in that because we're looking for ways to take the bounty that is produced in Alaska and in the Pacific Northwest and find a way to tell our story and then market those products to the global economy. The world is changing. Like I said, some of this traditional wisdom that's gone back millennia, that we are what we eat, people are beginning to learn that again. They're beginning to reject processed foods. They're beginning to look for natural foods. They care about where their food comes from. They care about what they put in their body. They understand that that's an integral part of their health and future livelihood. And we believe that this is an area of the world that has a unique bounty, and we are uniquely positioned to help market those products to the global community. We're working on 3 acquisitions in that area right now. Our approach is to work on many, many things and let the best one rise to the top. So we continue to research it, challenge it, internally, externally. We talk to anyone that knows anything about it. Anyone can help to form the decision, and then we invest in the one that rises to the top. I would expect that we'll make a major investment within the next 6 to 9 months, but it's not just about the first one. We're looking to make an investment and then continue to invest in that area to build scale, because that's how we get successful, by building depth of capability, not lots and lots of entities that are unrelated to each other. And then in our government services side, we've already started to grow again. We had a $35 million improvement in profit last year. We made a small profit, not enough. We're not saying that's good enough. We're doing very well at winning new work this year, and we're looking for smaller entities there to tuck into our already, growth profitable platform. And we're particularly interested in businesses. This is what we do. We basically help government agencies better utilize their unique land assets by monitoring, using various technologies and information technology, the degree to which are efficiently managing those land resources. We feel that's something that's very connected with the history and culture of Sealaska, and we continue to grow in those areas, and we continue to look for unique technologies that we can bring to bear so we can better manage and better develop resources in those lands and help government agencies do that. In that area, we're looking at several acquisitions right now and already growing. And I would expect, within the next 6 to 9 months, we make a tuck in there. That will be a smaller acquisition, someone we can integrate quickly because we already have the platform. I hope that answers the question.
Thank you, Terry. There is going to be a time at the question and answers that if you have more questions in these areas that you could ask, and they'll answer those. Our next panelist is Derek Fredrickson. Derek is a shareholder, has been with Sealaska for a long time, started up Sealaska Environmental Services from scratch, and is currently our general manager for Sealaska Governmental Services. Derek, I got a question for him. This is, we had several shareholders interested in learning more about our strategies in our SBA 8A government contracting program. And I would like you to talk about how we best utilize the program, what strategies the Government Services Group is using to stay competitive in this very competitive contracting industry.
Thank you, Richard. Just a real quick introduction of myself, just to add a little bit to what he said. I was born and raised in Seattle. My grandmother, Dorothy Dalton, is Tsimshian from Metlakatla, and it's great to be back. I think the last time I was on this stage, I had the pleasure to introduce Get Hone, and so I'm very excited for next year when Celebration hits again. It's such a wonderful and tremendous opportunity to share our culture with everybody. So I'm going to break apart Richard's question into 3 elements. I'm going to talk a little bit about the 8A program to provide a little bit of context and Sealaska's history in that 8A program. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the macro trends that are kind of impacting our ability to compete in this program. And then I'll finish up with some of those strategies that we're employing to stay competitive in an increasingly changing marketplace that's getting tougher and tougher to compete in. And so the 8A program is a business development program that's administered by the U.S. Small Business Administration. At its essence, it's a program that helps small businesses become more successful, with the idea that over the 9-year period of this program, once that small business is able to successfully graduate, they're able to compete against much larger and more established business entities. How do they become more successful? They become more successful through accessing a variety of the benefits that the program offers. This can be training and education opportunities. It could be access to something as simple as a financial loan, access to bonding capacity to do construction work. But primarily, the biggest driver for benefits within the 8A program is the ability to look for and target contracts that are specifically set aside by the United States government for only contractors that have been certified as 8A. Now, every firm that's certified 8A has access to those benefits. But Sealaska, as an Alaska Native corporation, and other groups like Native Hawaiian organizations and tribally owned concerns have a couple of additional benefits that really make us some super competitors when we operate in this program. Now, Sealaska started federal contracting in 2003. We've had about 3 companies successfully graduate from the program. We've got 4 active 8As right now, and we're getting ready to develop 2 additional ones. The successes of Sealaska and other ANCs have caused a lot of scrutiny on this program. About a decade ago, some of the benefits that these groups, us as Alaska Native corporations, NHOs, and tribes had that were kind of additional to the 8A benefits were we were able to receive sole source contracts of unlimited size. And what this means is we were able to negotiate with the federal government to provide a good or a product or a service, and it was just entered into agreement with us. This could be a $1 billion contract with the Department of Defense, and some of our sister ANCs were able to utilize this program to great benefit. The other big benefit that ANCs have is we're able to own more than one 8A at one time. Why would this be important? Well, we're able to take the past successes, and I'll use Sealaska Environmental Services as an example. We started this company in 2003. We successfully graduated from the program in 2012. We built a company from scratch that was employing over 100 people, doing $60 million in work in 21 countries overseas, all up and down the West Coast. The ability to own more than one 8A at a time allows us to take some of those successes, all the systems, the processes, the procedures that we developed, and to seed that to a new company coming along that we're developing. We're also able to utilize some of the lessons learned, and we've earned a lot of lessons throughout our history back to 2003. Last year was a good example with, the hardships that we encountered in Hawaii with Sealaska constructors. But in both instances, whether it's the successes that we've had or some of the hardships that we've had to overcome and the lessons that we've learned from that, we're able to package those into new 8A companies such that it's almost like a slingshot. You're pulling your arm back, and when that company's ready to go, it's started up, it's got a great background, it understands how to do federal contracting, it's got a lot of key relationships already in place, and it really understands what it takes to navigate this, the largest buyer of goods and services in the entire world. The federal government is the biggest purchaser. So, the successes that we've been able to have at Sealaska and that some of our other ANCs didn't go unnoticed. And, a couple of, broad macro trends have happened over the past several years, 2 of which are impacting our ability to be competitive and have really caused us to look at the program and figure out new strategies moving forward. So you all recall back in 2008, we had our largest financial recession since the Great Depression. It really impacted the private sector, and there was not a lot of purchasing of goods and services in that area. To kind of kickstart the economy, the federal government passed the American Reinvestment and Recovery Act to stimulate, and you had this influx of all these vendors coming into federal contracting. All that influx can really increase the competition. And what happens when you increase the competition dramatically? You have price pressures, and everybody's trying to win work, and they're being very competitive about it. So if you continue to employ old strategies, you're going to have a lot of difficulties winning new work moving forward. The other big thing that happened in 2010 was the passage of the National Defense Reauthorization Act. And a lot of the companies, a lot of the ANCs that were able to receive these large sole source contracts, $700 million, $1 billion, there was a cap put on it down to $20 million. And that cap, even though it's above and beyond the size of an individual 8A owner, it did severely curtail our ability to go out and get these sole source contracts. So we've had to come up with new strategies. And so those trends have really factored into our strategic direction and some of the strategies that we're employing to stay competitive. So I'll hit on a couple of those real quick to tie in and finish Richard's question. But namely, we've done about 5 things, and these are simple things on the surface, but when taken together as a group, they're pretty profound. The first one, we created a holding company called Sealaska Government Services, and we took all the federal operating entities that did contracting and put them underneath this holding company. We then took and looked at the structure of each of these operating entities, and we noticed that, all of them have accounting and finance functions. All of them have IT functions. They all have these redundant services that, are costly and impact our price points in terms of how we go out and bid work. And so we combined them all together. We took the best elements of each and we put them up into the holding company itself. So we have a very flat hierarchical management team that consists of the GMs from each of the operating entities and then a core set of support service offerings. We're able to be much more cost efficient as we bid on our work, and we work together as a team. This team communicates on a monthly basis. We meet and we do earn estimate at completions on all of our financial projects. We talk about the operational issues that our clients have, that we have out in the field. That speed of communication is really powerful. When our IT company, MBS, is in Colorado meeting with the National Park Service, and it comes up in conversation that they're looking for a contractor that can do environmental monitoring, our GM at MBS is able to quickly talk to us in the SGS group, and we can be that much more quick and responsive to that client. So that speed of communication that flat structure, that hierarchy provides is really important. 2, we've created almost a one Sealaska mentality. We've created a common benefit package, a common incentive package. All of us are in alignment. We're all in that same canoe together, paddling together in that direction, looking for where we're at today, currently. What's our future state? Where do we want to get to? What are the mission and vision that input with our values into where we're heading? When we're all on the same package working together, we're much more collaborative. You'll see a lot more in the future working together between our construction group, our environmental group, and our IT group. And this is really important for us as we move forward. The third thing that we did was we developed a set of filters based on our values. Anybody that's done federal contracting, you can go on to FedBizOps, and there are thousands of opportunities. Which ones are relevant to us? You can spend a lot of time, one person, going through all of these. And so we built a system of filters that down select from those thousands of federal possibilities to the tens of Sealaska opportunities. And what kind of opportunities are those that are relevant to us? We're really looking for opportunities that generate positive cash flow, that allow us to generate positive EBITDA. These aspects, really make us much more competitive. We're moving away from commodity-based services. We're really looking towards niche-based, value-added services. The fourth thing that we've done is really put an emphasis on building true capacity and capability throughout the company, throughout all of our operating entities. When we self-perform more work, we're able to generate and recapture a lot more overhead in G&A. This makes us more price competitive, and it offers us a true value out to our clients and customers. The last thing that kind of ties them all together that we've done, we've moved away from being much more opportunistic and reactive and moved to being much more strategic and proactive. Federal contracting, when you cite an opportunity, sometimes it can take 12 months to 24 months to win that opportunity. When that response for proposal, when the federal government asks for a specific service comes out, it can take a long time, and you're reacting to that opportunity, you're chasing it and trying to win it. Instead, what we've started to do and move away towards is engaging in the key customers that match our vision, that match our values. Terry mentioned the land-based agencies, some of the agencies that do water resources. These are global trends, whether it's drought and water or climate change. We're targeting these agencies, we're understanding what their issues are, and we're helping them build solutions such that when they go through their acquisition criteria, they encounter Sealaska because we offer those products and services. And so those 5 elements are just a real quick recap in terms of some of the strategies that we're employing to be much more competitive. Taken individually, they're really simple, but put together, they're profound, and they're allowing us to be much more successful as we proceed forward with our federal contracting endeavors.
Thank you, Derek. I am going to skip over our CEO so he can go last, and go forward to Jaylene Arujo, who has been our corporate counsel for several years and is now also our corporate secretary, so she has a super big job. One of the things we heard a number of times was about our advocacy, and you just heard a lot about the lands bill, and the ones we're hearing about now is the landless, the 5 landless communities of Ketchikan, Wrangell, Petersburg, Haines, and Tenakee. And we're also hearing a lot about the Vietnam Veterans Allotment efforts. Jaylene, what can you tell us about where we're at with those efforts and other policy issues that we're working on now?
Thank you, Richard. I'm going to stand because I can't sit for that long. I have a bad neck, and because I'm in a skirt, so kind of funny to sit up here in front of you in a skirt. And you can see I let the boys wear the pants today. So, thank you, Richard. I just want to thank you all for being here. And I've been the corporate secretary for about 8 months now. So one of my responsibilities is to keep us on time. So I'm going to be real quick. I also have been the legal counsel for almost 7 years. But one of the things I work on pretty regularly is the public policy priorities for the corporation. As you heard, I spent 10 years in DC before coming here. I've had great mentors, Alan Mintz, Chris McNeil, Bill Van Ness, who are very sharp in public policy, in legislative drafting and lobbying, and so it was a big deal for me to celebrate the land bill, but I'm also often running on our new priorities. I shouldn't even say they're new, because the landless has been an ongoing priority of Sealaska for many years. I worked on it when I was an intern at Sealaska. I won't say how many years ago, but I have been working on the landless for a long time, and happy to report we have new legislation for the 5 landless communities that has been introduced. And there was a hearing held on the House version of the bill last week on the 17th. So that's good news. It's progress on a legislative effort to reinvigorate the landless communities and hopefully have them included and recognized in ANCSA sometime soon. We've also helped administratively with the 5 landless communities to help incorporate them as nonprofit organizations in Alaska, and we also incorporated for them an umbrella organization under the laws of the state of Alaska to give them some structure and just to help them administratively to be organized and continue to work on this effort. And on the Native veterans, again, a longstanding issue. The first amendment to ANCSA that had the Native Veterans Allotment provisions occurred in 1998. That was actually the year I graduated from law school. So that was actually originally enacted many years ago, but it was very limited in the Native veterans from Vietnam who could apply. Only those who served from 1969 to 1971 could apply again for those allotment applications that they may have had missed an opportunity to apply for when they were serving our country. And so the new Native Veterans Bill that was introduced will make that window a little bit larger to cover the entire Vietnam conflict. And so that bill was also introduced, and both of these are heavily supported by Congressman Young. There was also a hearing on that bill that occurred 2 weeks ago on June 10th. And so we also just provide from Sealaska just ongoing support for that effort in conjunction with the Alaska Federation of Natives. I'm very proud of our longstanding history as Tlingit, Haida, and Tsimshian people being very strong public policy advocates, and we just continue to pursue that as a priority at the company. So thank you.
Thank you, Jaylene. So the last of our panel questions will be for Anthony Mallott. Anthony, Sealaska funds are currently a majority portion of the asset base of the corporation, and we've historically used these to build funds to provide income for future shareholder benefits, increase capital for operating expenses, or investments, excuse me. Can you give us a quick rundown of the funds that Sealaska manages in the investment process we utilize to create these benefits for our shareholders?
Thank you, Richard. Yeah, I really appreciate the question. You know, we do have such significant current focus on our operations, but when you look at the history of Sealaska and current Sealaska, investment assets encompass the majority of our asset base. You know, we have some significant investment funds that didn't come from nowhere. They came from a conscious savings mentality, a conscious understanding of the power of investment funds. And these decisions were made by historic Sealaska boards. Many of them are still on the board because they understood the wealth creation power of investment funds. And I'll just quickly, as I describe the funds we do have in Sealaska, describe how a small and upfront investment can return multitudes of your money. The largest fund we have, the Marjorie V. Young Permanent Fund, it's the main source of dividends, or a strong base of dividends for shareholders right now. In 2003, it began the year with a balance of $64 million. From 2003 to 2014, it distributed $45 million in dividends to shareholders, and currently sits at the end of 2014 with a year-end balance of $102 million. So you can see how starting with 64, giving out 45, still having 102 million, you can create significant wealth over time from investment funds. We have other examples. Our Elders Settlement Trust. The shareholders approved the Elders Settlement Trust in 1991. Sealaska originally funded that investment fund with $6.7 million over the life of the fund, which provides a benefit to any original shares. For every 100 original shares, you get $2,000 at the time that you turn 65. The fund has distributed $11 million to our elders, and it still has a fund balance of $9 million. So you can see the multitude, starting with 6.7, giving out 11, and still having 9. You have multiples of your original investment. Even more so, our scholarship fund. Our scholarship fund was started in 1989. It was funded with $2.5 million. It's distributed over $8 million in scholarships to our shareholders and still has a fund balance of $5.5 million. You know, again, starting with 2.5, you see the multiples of earnings power that our investment funds have created, but it takes pretty conscious investment management from the board and management to make sure that you stick to a disciplined investment process. There are a lot of mistakes you can make when you're making investments in risky assets. The board follows an investment policy statement. They track performance of the funds on a quarterly basis. They make asset allocation decisions with management. They review what managers get into the funds. And again, most importantly, they stay disciplined. So when we see markets fall, we know we have to stay disciplined to that asset allocation. And we don't make mistakes of getting out of the market when it's down or making mistakes when it's overvalued. So again, investment funds can provide significant income and have provided significant income to Sealaska, but it takes significant management time to appropriately manage those and take full advantage of the power of the earnings power of investment funds. And we're proud that right now we still have significant funds, and we have significant funds that have been saved and reinvested, and they will be key in our ability to invest in our operating entities for the future growth of Sealaska. Thank you.